Self-control is strength. Right thought is mastery. Calmness is power. These are the words of James Allen, a writer deeply influenced by Stoic philosophy, and they carry a timeless truth that feels more relevant than ever. In a world filled with endless distractions and instant gratification, self-control seems harder to master, yet more crucial to our happiness. Think about it. How often do we let fleeting emotions or external temptations steer us away from what truly matters? Today, we're diving into the wisdom of the Stoics, uncovering how mastering self-control isn't just about discipline, it's the foundation for a more meaningful and fulfilling life. By the end of this video, you'll see that happiness isn't found in chasing what's outside of you, but in mastering what's within you. Picture this: you're working on an important project, fully committed to seeing it through, when your phone buzzes with a notification. Without even thinking, your hand reaches for it, and suddenly you're scrolling through social media. What was supposed to be a quick glance turns into 20 minutes, or maybe even an hour, lost to distraction. Sound familiar? This is a perfect example of how our impulses can hijack our actions. But according to Stoicism, moments like these aren't just setbacks, they're opportunities. Opportunities to practice self-control. So, what exactly is Stoic self-control? At its core, it's the ability to master your desires, emotions, and impulses rather than being a slave to them. It's the discipline to pause and choose your response intentionally, rather than reacting out of habit or emotion. In Stoicism, self-control isn't about repressing what you feel or ignoring your desires. Instead, it's about understanding them, taking ownership of your choices, and aligning your actions with your higher values. The ancient Stoics like Epictetus and Seneca taught that self-control is the foundation of a peaceful and fulfilling life. Why? Because so much of our unhappiness comes from chasing after what we don't need or letting emotions like anger, fear, or envy dictate our behavior. Think about the last time you got frustrated because something didn't go your way. Maybe it was a missed opportunity or a harsh word from a colleague. That frustration likely led to a reaction, whether it was venting, procrastinating, or stewing in negativity. But what if instead you had taken a step back, observed the emotion, and chosen not to let it control you? That's the essence of Stoic self-control, breaking free from the autopilot and reclaiming your power to act with purpose. To put it in practical terms, Stoic self-control is about focusing on what's within your control and letting go of what isn't. The Stoics remind us that we don't control external events or other people's actions, but we always have control over how we respond. The temptation to scroll on your phone, the anger that flares up in the heat of a disagreement, or the craving for that extra cookie, these are all tests of self-control. And the Stoics encourage us to see these tests not as obstacles but as training. Every time you resist a distraction, remain calm in the face of provocation, or choose patience over frustration, you strengthen your ability to govern yourself. You become, as the Stoics would say, the ruler of your own mind. Now, here's a simple but powerful analogy the Stoics used to explain this. Imagine your mind as a ship, and your desires and emotions as the winds and waves. Without self-control, the winds and waves push you in every direction, leaving you at the mercy of the storm. But with self-control, you're the captain of that ship. You can adjust your sails and steer toward your destination, no matter how rough the sea becomes. The winds and waves don't disappear, but they no longer dictate your course. You are in control, so the next time you feel pulled by a distraction or overwhelmed by an emotion, try to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, do I want to be ruled by this impulse, or do I want to choose my response with intention? Remember, every time you practice self-control, no matter how small the act, you're cultivating a mind that's clearer, stronger, and more resilient. In the Stoic view, this is where real happiness begins, not in the things we acquire or the circumstances we experience, but in the mastery we build within ourselves. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." At first glance, this might sound counterintuitive. Isn't freedom about doing whatever we want, whenever we want? But Stoicism flips this idea on its head, teaching us that true freedom, and by extension, true happiness, isn't found in indulging every whim or chasing fleeting pleasures. Instead, it's found in mastering our desires and taking control of our inner world. Let's explore why the Stoics believed self-control is so deeply connected to lasting happiness. Imagine the things we typically associate with happiness: a delicious meal, a shopping spree, maybe binge watching your favorite show. These experiences bring joy in the moment, no doubt. But how long does that feeling last? Often, it fades as quickly as it comes, leaving us hungry for the next fix. This is the nature of fleeting pleasures. They're temporary, like drops of water on a hot day. They might quench our thirst for a moment, but they don't truly satisfy. What's worse, chasing them over and over can leave us feeling unfulfilled, as if we're running on a treadmill that never stops. The Stoics, however, invite us to look beyond these surface-level pleasures and ask, what brings true, lasting joy? Their answer lies in self-control. When we govern our desires, resist unhealthy impulses, and focus on living in alignment with our deeper values, we create a sense of contentment that isn't dependent on external circumstances. By exercising self-control, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. We stop being ruled by what's outside of us, and instead, we cultivate a wellspring of peace and happiness within. Here's an analogy to make this clearer. Think of self-control as the roots of a tree. A tree with shallow roots might grow quickly and seem robust, but when a storm comes, it's easily uprooted. On the other hand, a tree with deep, strong roots can withstand even the harshest winds. Similarly, fleeting pleasures might feel good in the short term, but they don't provide the stability we need when life gets tough. Self-control, by grounding us in discipline and inner strength, helps us weather life's challenges while maintaining our sense of peace and purpose. Epictetus' idea of freedom through self-mastery also reveals an important truth about how we experience the world. We often think external things like wealth, success, or recognition control our happiness, but Stoicism teaches that these things are neutral. Their power lies not in the things themselves, but in how we perceive and react to them. A person without self-control, who's constantly at the mercy of external factors, will always feel like a prisoner to their circumstances. But a person with self-control, someone who can choose their response regardless of what life throws at them, experiences a profound sense of liberation. And with that liberation comes a deep and enduring happiness, one that no external force can take away. Now take a moment to reflect. What in your life brings you the kind of joy that lasts? Is it the quick thrill of success or indulgence? Or is it the quieter, more enduring satisfaction of living in line with your values and being the person you aspire to be? The truth is, self-control isn't about deprivation. It's about choosing joy over distraction, purpose over impulse, and fulfillment over fleeting satisfaction. By practicing self-control, the Stoics believed we could tap into a happiness that is steady and unwavering. It's not about rejecting pleasure entirely, but about understanding which pleasures contribute to our well-being and which ones leave us feeling empty. When you're in control of yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, you unlock the freedom to live with intention, and that, the Stoics would say, is the key to true happiness. Imagine this scenario. You're at the airport, excited for a long-awaited vacation. You've planned everything. Your hotel is booked, an itinerary carefully crafted, but then you see it, the announcement that your flight is delayed indefinitely. Frustration bubbles up. Maybe you feel anger toward the airline, worry about missing out on your plans, or even outright despair at the situation. Now, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what in this situation can you actually control? Can you control the weather causing the delay, the airline staff working to fix the issue? The answer, of course, is no. This is where the Stoic concept of the dichotomy of control becomes a powerful guide. The Stoics believed that one of the surest paths to inner peace and self-discipline is understanding the clear distinction between what is within our control and what is not. In this situation, while you can't control the flight delay, you can control your response to it. Instead of letting frustration consume you, you could choose to stay calm, use the time to read a book, or even plan an alternative route if necessary. This shift in focus, redirecting your energy to what's within your power, lays the groundwork for self-control and, consequently, peace of mind. The dichotomy of control is simple in theory but profound in practice. According to the Stoics, the things within our control include our thoughts, emotions, choices, and actions. These are internal aspects of life where we hold full authority. On the other hand, external factors like the actions of other people, the results of our efforts, or random events lie entirely outside our control. Trying to control these external factors is not only futile, but it also sets us up for unnecessary stress, disappointment, and even unhappiness. The Stoics teach us to let go of that struggle and focus instead on what we can govern, ourselves. Think of it this way: when you waste time obsessing over what you can't change, it's like throwing energy into a bottomless pit. Not only does it drain you, but it also distracts you from the areas where you can make a difference. The dichotomy of control is about reclaiming that energy and directing it towards something productive: your mindset, your actions, your growth. This approach not only cultivates self-control, but also helps us build resilience against life's inevitable challenges. Let's go back to the delayed flight example. Without this Stoic lens, frustration might lead you to lash out at the airline staff or stew in negativity for hours, neither of which changes the situation. But by focusing on what's within your control, you regain agency. Maybe you use the delay to practice patience, catch up on work, or even connect with someone nearby. Each time you choose to act within your sphere of control, you foster self-discipline and reinforce a mindset of calm under pressure. The same principle applies to everyday life. Imagine a coworker criticizes your project or your boss overlooks your contributions. It's easy to feel hurt or angry, wishing you could control their opinions or actions. But the Stoics remind us you can't. What you can do is reflect on your own behavior. Did you do your best work? Can you adjust your approach moving forward? By focusing on what's within your power, your effort, your professionalism, your response, you not only regain control over the situation, but also strengthen your sense of discipline and integrity. The beauty of the dichotomy of control is that it simplifies life's complexity. It reminds us to stop fighting battles we can't win and instead channel our energy where it really matters. This clarity gives us the space to practice self-control even in difficult situations. It's not about denying the reality of setbacks, but choosing how we engage with them. As the Stoics often said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. By focusing on what's within our control, we stop suffering over things we cannot change and instead grow stronger in the areas we can. So, the next time life throws you an unexpected curveball, whether it's a delayed flight, a difficult person, or an outcome that didn't go your way, pause and ask yourself this: what part of this is truly within my power? And how do I want to respond? By doing this, you'll find that self-control doesn't just come naturally, it becomes your pathway to freedom and peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. This timeless wisdom points to one of the central practices of Stoicism, a cognitive detachment. Now, this might sound like a complex concept, but in truth, it's a simple and profoundly liberating approach to life. Cognitive detachment is the skill of separating our emotional reactions from the events that trigger them. It's about seeing events for what they are, neutral occurrences, and understanding that it's our interpretation of those events, not the events themselves, that causes us distress. Let's break this down with a practical example. Imagine you're driving to work and someone cuts you off in traffic. Your immediate reaction might be anger or frustration. Thoughts like, "How could they do that?" or "What a reckless driver," might flood your mind, and before you know it, your mood for the whole morning is ruined. But here's the thing, the act of a car cutting in front of you on the road is just that, an act. It's neutral. It doesn't have any inherent meaning. The frustration you feel doesn't come from the event itself, but from the judgment you've attached to it. Judgments like, "That driver must be selfish," or "This is ruining my day." This is where cognitive detachment comes in. The Stoics teach us to pause, take a step back, and examine the situation without letting our emotions take control. Instead of reacting automatically, you practice seeing the event for what it truly is. A car merging into your lane. That's it. No drama, no story, no emotional hurricane. By separating your emotions from the event, you reclaim your peace of mind and avoid allowing a small, fleeting moment to sabotage your day. Cognitive detachment isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about observing them without letting them dictate your actions. Think of it like watching clouds pass in the sky. You don't try to grab onto them or push them away, you simply notice them and let them move on. In the case of the traffic example, instead of feeding your anger, you might tell yourself, "That driver's actions are outside my control. My reaction, however, is entirely up to me." This shift in perspective immediately softens the emotional intensity and helps you respond with calm and rationality. Marcus Aurelius also reminds us, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. This practice of revoking our judgment is at the heart of cognitive detachment. It's about recognizing that external events are just that, external. They don't carry inherent meaning or power unless we give it to them. By keeping this distinction clear in our minds, we can maintain our inner tranquility even amidst life's chaos. Let's consider a modern, relatable scenario involving cognitive detachment. Imagine you post a picture or an opinion on social media and someone leaves a negative comment. Your initial reaction might be hurt or anger, thinking, "Why would they say something so mean?" But the Stoic approach teaches us to pause and ask, is it the comment itself that's upsetting me or my interpretation of what it means? Perhaps you've judged the comment as an attack on your worth or your ideas, but when you detach from that judgment, you see the comment for what it is, someone's words on a screen. Their opinion doesn't define you unless you decide to let it. Each time we practice cognitive detachment, we strengthen our ability to navigate life's ups and downs with clarity and self-control. It's not about ignoring emotions altogether, but about keeping them in their proper place, acknowledging them without letting them take over. So, the next time you find yourself upset by an external situation, take a deep breath, step back, and remind yourself, this event is neutral. It's my judgment that makes it otherwise, and I have the power to change that. In doing so, you'll discover just how much strength you truly have over your mind and, by extension, your happiness. Imagine this, you're in a meeting at work presenting an idea you've spent weeks developing. But before you even finish, a colleague cuts you off with dismissive criticism, belittling your efforts in front of everyone. The anger rises quickly. Your face feels hot, your heart races, and every part of you wants to fire back with an equally sharp retort. This is a familiar scenario for many of us, moments when emotions like anger, frustration, or even embarrassment threaten to take control. But what if there were a way to pause, take back that control, and respond with clarity and purpose instead of reacting impulsively? That's where Stoic practices for emotional mastery come into play. The Stoics understood that emotions, particularly intense ones like anger, are a natural part of being human. They didn't advocate for suppressing these feelings or pretending they didn't exist. Instead, they taught ways to transform our relationship with emotions, allowing us to feel them without letting them dominate our actions. One of the simplest and most powerful techniques they recommended is the art of taking a pause. Think back to the scenario with your colleague. In that heated moment, taking even a brief pause can create a critical space between the stimulus, the critical comment, and your response. The Stoics called this the moment of choice, where you decide whether to let the emotion control you or to step back and regain perspective. A pause could be as subtle as taking a slow, deep breath or mentally counting to 5 before saying anything. This small act disrupts the automatic impulsive reaction and gives your rational mind a chance to regain footing. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca wisely observed, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Another Stoic practice that can help you respond with calm and clarity is reframing your thoughts. In any emotionally charged situation, the Stoics would advise us to examine the story we're telling ourselves. For example, in the meeting, you might think, "My colleague is intentionally trying to humiliate me. They don't respect me at all." But what if you paused and questioned this assumption? Could there be another explanation? Maybe your colleague misunderstood your idea, or perhaps their comment reflects their own stress or insecurity, not a deliberate attack on you. By reframing the situation, you shift your focus away from personalizing the event and towards seeing it in a more objective light. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself of this, writing, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Through reframing, you take back that power. For longer-term emotional mastery, the Stoics highly valued journaling as a daily practice. This isn't about writing lengthy essays or documenting every detail of your day, but rather using a journal as a tool for reflection. At the end of each day, you could write about moments when emotions challenged you. What triggered them? How did you respond? What could you do differently next time? For example, after that meeting, you might reflect on why your colleague's comment affected you so deeply. Was it because it challenged your work, or perhaps because it touched on a deeper fear of not being valued? By journaling, you not only process your emotions but also gain self-awareness, which is key to managing them more effectively in the future. The beauty of these Stoic practices, pausing, reframing, and journaling, is that they build on each other. Pausing gives you control in the moment. Reframing shifts your perspective and calms emotional reactions. Journaling helps you build emotional resilience over time by identifying patterns and reinforcing strategies that align with your values. Together, these techniques empower you to master your emotions rather than being mastered by them. So, the next time anger or frustration starts to take hold, remember, it's not the situation itself that controls your emotions, but how you choose to interpret and respond to it. By practicing these timeless Stoic techniques, you'll find that over time, you're not only more composed but also more in control of your happiness, no matter what challenges come your way. When we think about resilience, we often picture someone who can bounce back quickly after setbacks, someone who remains calm and collected, even when life feels like it's falling apart. But have you ever wondered where that resilience really comes from? The Stoics believed resilience isn't something you're simply born with, it's a skill, a byproduct of mastering self-control. And just like any skill, it's something you can develop with practice. Seneca, a renowned Stoic philosopher, often spoke about hardship as a training ground for strength. He believed that life's challenges, no matter how unpleasant, are essential for building resilience. Think of it like going to the gym. When you lift weights, you're putting your muscles under stress. It's uncomfortable, even painful at times, but that stress is what makes you stronger. Similarly, life's adversities are the weights for your mind. They test your ability to stay calm, composed, and focused, and with every test, you become more resilient. Here's the key connection. Self-control is what allows you to embrace these hardships rather than resist them. When you master self-control, you stop reacting to challenges with fear, anger, or despair. Instead, you learn to see obstacles for what they are: opportunities to grow stronger. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you start asking, "What can I learn from this? How can I use this to become better?" This mindset shift is the foundation of resilience. Let's take a simple but relatable example. Imagine losing a job. Initially, you might feel overwhelmed by a wave of emotions: panic, frustration, self-doubt. Without self-control, it's easy to spiral into negativity, feeling stuck and unable to move forward. But with self-control, you can take a step back and pause. Instead of letting those emotions define you, you focus on what you can control, updating your skills, refining your resume, applying for new opportunities. In this way, what feels like a devastating setback becomes a chance to emerge even stronger and more prepared for what's ahead. Seneca put it bluntly: difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. He didn't mean we should seek out pain or struggle unnecessarily. Rather, he encouraged us to reframe how we view life's inevitable challenges. Instead of avoiding discomfort, welcome it as a teacher. Imagine facing a harsh winter storm. You could curse the cold and hide indoors, or you could step out, knowing that braving the storm will toughen your spirit. The storm isn't the problem, it's our attitude toward it that determines our experience. Resilience, in this sense, is about learning how to walk through life's storms with courage and composure. Self-control is what helps you train this mindset. It teaches you to stay steady, even when the ground beneath you feels shaky. Over time, you start to see that the discomfort of adversity is temporary, but the strength and wisdom you gain from enduring it are lasting. Each challenge becomes another repetition in your mental gym, and each repetition leaves you better equipped to handle whatever life throws at you next. So, how do you start building this resilience today? Whenever you encounter a difficult situation, practice pausing. Don't give in to the knee-jerk reaction of anger, fear, or self-pity. Instead, ask yourself, what's within my control right now? Then focus your energy on those things. It might be as simple as calming your breath, taking that first step towards solving the problem, or even reframing the story you're telling yourself about the situation. The more you do this, the more you'll find that challenges lose their power to overwhelm you. They become stepping stones to growth rather than roadblocks to happiness. Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic philosopher, famously said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, every obstacle is an opportunity in disguise. The path to resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about meeting it with self-control and turning it into a source of strength. Through this practice, you'll not only weather life's storms, but also come out of them more grounded, capable, and resilient than ever before. Let's take a moment to think about how often we're tempted by the allure of instant gratification. You're scrolling through your phone, planning to take just a quick look at social media when suddenly 30 minutes have vanished. Maybe you're trying to stick to a budget, but the thrill of a limited-time sale leads to an impulse buy you later regret. Or perhaps you've promised yourself you'd start that project you've been putting off, but the pull of binge watching one more episode feels impossible to resist. These examples might seem harmless in the moment, but over time, this pattern of chasing short-term pleasures can quietly erode our ability to achieve the deeper, more fulfilling happiness we truly crave. The truth is, the modern world is built to feed our desire for instant gratification. Social media platforms are designed to keep us scrolling, notifications constantly interrupt our focus, and advertising urges us to act now for fleeting rewards. It's no wonder we're increasingly drawn to what feels good in the moment instead of what truly benefits us in the long run. But here's the catch: the Stoics understood long ago what we're just starting to realize today. Giving in to these fleeting pleasures comes at the expense of something far more valuable. Epictetus once warned, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And isn't that what instant gratification does? It robs us of our freedom. Each time we succumb to these distractions, we allow external forces, like the algorithms on our phone or the promise of a sugar rush, to dictate our actions. Over time, this lack of self-control leads to feelings of frustration, regret, and even a sense of being trapped in a constant cycle of unfulfilled desires. So how can we break free and avoid falling into this trap? The Stoics offer a powerful antidote: the practice of self-control. By mastering our impulses, we gain the ability to delay gratification and, in doing so, make decisions that align with our long-term goals and values. It's about pausing to ask ourselves, is this momentary pleasure worth sacrificing the bigger picture? For instance, the satisfaction of completing that project or saving for a meaningful goal far outweighs the temporary excitement of scrolling through memes or buying something we don't need. To put this into practice, one effective strategy is what the Stoics might call mindful forethought. Before you act on an impulse, take a moment to think about how it will affect you, not just now but in the hours, days, or years to come. For example, instead of automatically reaching for your phone, ask yourself, how will this choice impact me later? Will I feel proud of how I spent my time? This small pause can shift your focus from instant gratification to the lasting benefits of self-discipline. The Stoics also suggest reframing how we view pleasure itself. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "Do not be carried away by appearances, but help yourself back to the rhythm of self-control." What he meant is that the pleasures we chase often aren't as rewarding as we imagine. Think of the last time you indulged in an impulse. Did the joy really last? Or did it leave you wanting more, stuck in a cycle of temporary satisfaction followed by emptiness? By questioning these pursuits, the Stoics encourage us to align our actions with what truly fulfills us, rather than what merely distracts us. Finally, it's worth remembering that self-control doesn't mean denying yourself all pleasure. It's not about living a life of deprivation. It's about choosing the kind of pleasures that bring real satisfaction, the ones rooted in growth, purpose, and alignment with your values. Whether it's the pride of staying focused on a goal, the joy of meaningful relationships, or the sense of peace that comes from living simply, these are the rewards that last. The next time you feel the tug of instant gratification, consider it an opportunity to test your ability to pause, reflect, and choose wisely. Because real freedom isn't found in doing what feels good in the moment. It's found in mastering your impulses and building a life that reflects the happiness, strength, and purpose you truly deserve. Desire and reason, two powerful forces that shape our lives in very different ways. Desire often pulls us toward what feels good in the moment, while reason guides us toward what is right and meaningful in the long run. For the Stoics, the key to a harmonious life isn't about suppressing desire entirely, but about aligning it with reason. When our desires serve our higher purpose rather than fleeting pleasures, we unlock a life of clarity, fulfillment, and peace. But how exactly do we achieve this balance? To illustrate this concept, let's turn to the story of Zeno, the founder of Stoicism. It's said that Zeno was once invited to a lavish banquet. The table was overflowing with rich foods, rare wines, and decadent indulgences, temptations that would be hard for anyone to resist. But rather than giving in to excess, Zeno paused. He carefully considered whether indulging in these pleasures aligned with the principles he valued: self-control, temperance, and living in accordance with nature. For Zeno, the answer was clear. He politely declined anything more than the simplest meal, not because he believed pleasure was inherently wrong, but because he knew overindulgence would pull him away from his reasoned path. By resisting temptation and staying true to his values, Zeno demonstrated the Stoic ideal of harmony between desire and reason. Now, let's bring this idea into a modern context. Think about your daily life. How often are you faced with desires that conflict with your long-term goals or values? Maybe it's the urge to spend hours scrolling on your phone when you've promised yourself to work on a personal project. Maybe it's the temptation to buy something you don't need, even though you're trying to save for something meaningful. It could even be the desire to say something hurtful in the heat of an argument, even though you value kindness and understanding. These moments are opportunities to practice aligning desire with reason, just as Zeno did at that banquet. The first step is awareness. The Stoics believed that reason gives us the ability to pause and reflect before acting on any desire. In practical terms, this means asking yourself, is this desire serving my higher purpose, or is it pulling me away from the person I want to be? For example, if you're tempted to argue back in anger, reason might remind you to value calm and constructive communication instead. Instead of reacting impulsively, you pause, take a breath, and choose a response aligned with your principles. The second step is redefining your desires. The Stoics didn't view desire as inherently bad. They simply encouraged us to desire things that truly matter: virtue, wisdom, and integrity. This requires a subtle but powerful shift in mindset. Rather than desiring the approval of others, for instance, you might cultivate a desire to act with integrity, regardless of what others think. Instead of craving material comforts, you might foster a deeper appreciation for simplicity and sufficiency. Over time, these reasoned desires begin to shape your decisions, leading to a life that feels more authentic and aligned with your values. Finally, the Stoics remind us that practice makes progress. Aligning desire with reason isn't something that happens overnight. It's a skill just like any other, and it takes time to develop. Start small. The next time you feel a desire arise, pause for a moment and examine it. Ask yourself if it aligns with your longer-term goals or if it's just a passing impulse. With each deliberate choice, you strengthen your ability to harmonize desire and reason, making it easier over time. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't eliminate joy, it deepens it. When your desires are guided by reason, you're no longer chasing fleeting pleasures or feeling regret over impulsive decisions. Instead, you're living a life of intentionality and purpose, where your choices reflect the best version of yourself. And that, the Stoics would say, is the true path to harmony. Imagine, just for a moment, waking up tomorrow and realizing that something you rely on every day is no longer there. Maybe it's as simple as your morning coffee, the comforting warmth of your favorite blanket, or even the presence of someone you hold dear. How would you feel? A bit unsettled, right? Now pause and ask yourself, how often do you think about how much these things mean to you while they're present? This thought experiment is a small glimpse into the Stoic practice of negative visualization, or premeditatio malorum *, which translates to the premeditation of evils. At first, it might seem strange, even counterintuitive, to intentionally imagine negative outcomes, the loss of comforts, opportunities, or loved ones. But the goal of negative visualization isn't to dwell on misfortune or invite sadness. Instead, it's a tool to sharpen your self-control, deepen your gratitude and ultimately build a more stable and appreciative mindset. Here's how it works. The Stoics believed that much of our unhappiness comes not from life's actual hardships, but from being caught off guard by them. When we assume things will always stay the same, that we'll always have what we have now, it's easy to take these things for granted. Then, when change inevitably happens, we're left feeling unprepared and overwhelmed. Negative visualization flips this on its head by encouraging us to mentally prepare ourselves for life's uncertainties. By imagining the loss of something or someone we care about, we can learn to appreciate them more fully in the present. And if that loss ever does occur, we're better equipped to handle it with composure and grace. Take something as simple as running water. You probably don't give much thought to it every time you turn on the tap. But what if, just for a moment, you imagined waking up tomorrow and finding that your home had no running water? Suddenly, the convenience of clean, fresh water at your fingertips feels extraordinary. Negative visualization helps us realize that even the smallest, most mundane aspects of life are gifts we often overlook. This practice doesn't just make us more grateful, it also strengthens our self-control by helping us reduce our dependence on external comforts. By mentally rehearsing how we'd manage without them, we train ourselves to be less affected if they're ever gone. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, practiced negative visualization regularly. Seneca advised imagining losses not as a way to despair, but as a way to fortify the mind. He suggested that by periodically reflecting on life's fragility, we could become both more resilient and more present. For example, instead of fearing his own death or the deaths of those he loved, he would remind himself that these events are natural and inevitable. Rather than feeling paralyzed by this thought, it motivated him to cherish the relationships and opportunities he had while they lasted. Let's bring this into a modern example, your smartphone. It's something many of us use every single day, often without much thought. What if you pictured, just for a moment, losing access to it? No instant connection to loved ones, no endless stream of information at your fingertips. While it might initially seem uncomfortable to imagine, this exercise can shift your perspective. Instead of treating your phone as something you're entitled to, you start seeing it as a privilege, and that small mental shift can foster gratitude for what you have right now. And when you broaden the practice to things like your relationships, your health, or the opportunities in your life, the effects are even more profound. You begin to notice the blessings you might have otherwise overlooked. You interact with loved ones with more presence and appreciation, knowing that nothing lasts forever. Negative visualization reduces complacency and replaces it with a deeper sense of gratitude for the here and now. At the same time, this practice creates a kind of emotional buffer. If the imagined loss ever does become real, you're not blindsided. Instead, you've already prepared your mind to face it with strength and acceptance. This is key to developing self-control. It's not about suppressing emotions, but training yourself to respond to life's challenges with grace rather than panic. Ultimately, negative visualization is a reminder of life's impermanence, not to make us fear it, but to help us treasure what we have while we have it, and to be stronger when life inevitably changes. So take a moment today to reflect. What's one thing or one person you'd struggle to live without? Imagine their absence, not to feel sad, but to recognize their value and to let that sense of gratitude guide you. That's the Stoic way to strengthen your self-control and build a deeper appreciation for life in all its fleeting beauty. Self-control, like any other skill, is not built overnight. It's the result of consistent, intentional practice woven into the fabric of everyday life. The Stoics understood this well, which is why they placed so much emphasis on daily habits. These habits serve as the foundation for cultivating self-discipline and living in alignment with one's values. After all, big changes don't happen in a single moment. They're the cumulative result of small, deliberate actions repeated over time. One of the most practical and impactful habits recommended by the Stoics is setting clear intentions every morning. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations often wrote about preparing his mind for the day ahead by reflecting on the challenges he might face and how he wished to respond. In modern terms, think of this as a mental warm-up. Before you dive into your day, take a moment to pause and reflect. Ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to be today? What values do I want to embody? How will I handle the inevitable challenges? By starting the day with this kind of mindful intention, you prime your mind to act with purpose and self-control, rather than being swept away by distractions or emotions. For example, you might decide that today, regardless of what happens, you will practice patience. When that difficult coworker interrupts you, or when you're stuck in traffic and feel frustration rising, you can recall your morning intention. It acts as an anchor, reminding you of the bigger picture and helping you resist the pull of impulsive reactions. This simple habit of setting intentions isn't about perfection. It's about creating a mental framework that guides your choices throughout the day. Another habit the Stoics valued was ending the day with reflection. Seneca, for instance, would review his actions every evening, asking himself questions like, "What did I do well today? Where did I fall short? How can I do better tomorrow?" This practice of self-examination is incredibly powerful for cultivating self-control because it brings awareness to our patterns. By identifying your triggers and analyzing your behavior, you create an opportunity for growth. Maybe you notice that impatience got the better of you in a particular situation, or that you struggled to resist a certain distraction. Instead of criticizing yourself, you can use this insight constructively to plan for a better response next time. Over time, these nightly reflections help you fine-tune your actions and reinforce your commitment to personal growth. For a practical example, imagine someone trying to break the habit of reaching for their phone first thing in the morning. At night, they reflect and realize they gave in to the temptation again today. Instead of feeling defeated, they decide to adjust their environment by leaving their phone in another room. The next morning, during their moment of intention setting, they reaffirm their goal to stay present and start the day without distractions. By combining evening reflection with morning mindfulness, they create a positive feedback loop that strengthens their self-control. The Stoics also recognize the importance of building small, consistent habits that align with their values. Think of practices like taking a quiet moment of mindfulness before beginning a task, journaling about your thoughts and emotions, or even pausing to remind yourself of the dichotomy of control in a challenging moment. These small actions might seem insignificant at first, but over time they have a compounding effect. Each habit reinforces your ability to pause, reflect, and choose your response intentionally rather than acting on autopilot. What's important to remember is that these habits don't require hours of effort or a major lifestyle overhaul. You don't need to spend hours meditating or write pages of reflections each night. Even a few intentional minutes each morning and evening can make a profound difference. The Stoics teach us that the quality of our habits, not their complexity, is what truly matters. So, as you think about your own life, consider this. What small, daily habits can you adopt to practice self-control? Could you take a moment in the morning to set an intention, or end your day with a quick reflection on where you excelled or where you struggled? By committing to these simple practices, you're not just building self-control, you're building a life that reflects the person you aspire to be, one intentional habit at a time. When was the last time you voluntarily stepped outside your comfort zone? Maybe you skipped a meal, took a cold shower, or chose to sit in silence instead of scrolling through your phone. These small acts might seem insignificant, even unnecessary, in today's world of convenience and comfort. But for the Stoics, deliberately embracing discomfort wasn't just an exercise in willpower, it was a cornerstone of building discipline and resilience. The Stoics practiced what we might call voluntary discomfort, intentionally exposing themselves to challenges in controlled environments to strengthen their self-control and toughen their minds and bodies. Seneca spoke about this often, famously writing, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Here, Seneca isn't advocating for unnecessary suffering. Rather, he's encouraging us to confront the discomfort we usually avoid to strip it of its power. By practicing voluntary discomfort, you not only prepare yourself for life's inevitable hardships, but also gain a greater appreciation for the comforts you do have. Let's unpack this idea with an example. Imagine skipping your usual indulgent meals for a few days and subsisting on the simplest, most basic foods. At first, you might feel deprived or even irritated. But as the days go on, you'd start to realize something profound. You're still okay. Your body adapts, your mind adjusts, and the luxurious meals you once took for granted start to feel like treasures rather than expectations. This is what the Stoics aim to teach through voluntary discomfort, not to live in deprivation permanently, but to remind ourselves of how little we actually need to be content. In modern times, practices like intermittent fasting have become a popular way to explore this same principle. By intentionally skipping meals or extending the time between eating, you challenge your body and mind to function without the immediate gratification of food. Over time, this practice isn't just beneficial for physical health, it also builds mental toughness. Every time you resist the urge to eat out of boredom or habit, you reinforce your ability to control your impulses. You prove to yourself that you're capable of enduring discomfort, and that realization carries over into other areas of life. Another practical example of voluntary discomfort is cold exposure, such as taking a cold shower or swimming in cold water. At first, the shock to your body makes you want to flee. Your mind might scream, "This is unbearable," but the longer you stay, the more you realize that the discomfort is temporary, and you are far more resilient than you give yourself credit for. When you step out of that cold shower, you not only feel physically invigorated but also mentally empowered. You've shown yourself that you can endure discomfort by staying present and in control. The Stoics believed that building resilience in this way wasn't just about toughening the body but also the mind. By willingly stepping into discomfort, you train yourself to remain calm and composed when life forces discomfort upon you. It's a way of inoculating yourself against fear and anxiety, teaching your mind that you can handle far more than you think. As Seneca reminds us, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. But there's more. Voluntary discomfort also recalibrates your sense of gratitude. When you've experienced what it's like to go without, even briefly, you appreciate what you have much more deeply. After fasting, a simple meal becomes a joy. After a cold shower, a warm blanket feels like a luxury. By intentionally stepping away from comfort, you not only build discipline but also cultivate a richer appreciation for life's small pleasures. So, how can you begin incorporating this Stoic practice into your life? Start small. Try skipping a meal or taking a cold shower once a week. Maybe walk to a destination you'd normally drive to, or spend a day without any digital distractions. These small, deliberate acts of discomfort might seem trivial at first, but over time they strengthen your mind and body, deepen your gratitude, and most importantly, build a foundation of self-discipline that prepares you for whatever challenges life may bring. After all, as the Stoics taught us, the path to true inner strength often begins where comfort ends. Consider this: how many of the decisions you make every day are influenced by others rather than coming from your own values? Whether it's choosing what to wear, what to say, or even what career path to pursue, we're constantly bombarded by external opinions, societal expectations, and the pressure to conform. From peer pressure in social groups to the criticism we fear from strangers on social media, the influence of others can feel overwhelming. But the Stoics remind us of a profound truth. Your peace of mind and happiness don't have to be at the mercy of what others think or expect. True freedom comes from anchoring your sense of self within your own control, not in the shifting opinions of the outside world. Take a moment to reflect on this teaching from Epictetus. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. At first, this might seem harsh, even unsettling, but what Epictetus is saying is that pursuing true growth and true happiness often means going against the grain. It means being willing to face disapproval, whether it's from your peers, society, or even your own doubts, because you're choosing to act in accordance with your principles rather than seeking external validation. The Stoics recognize that the opinions and judgments of others are outside our control. What is within our control, however, is how much weight we give them. By grounding our happiness in our own reasoned actions rather than the approval of others, we free ourselves from the constant tug of war of trying to please everyone. Let's bring this concept to life with a relatable example: resisting peer pressure. Imagine you're part of a friend group that values expensive lifestyles, designer clothes, fancy restaurants, and the latest gadgets. You're saving for something meaningful, like taking a course to advance your career or traveling to a place you've always dreamed of. But every time your friends invite you to an extravagant night out, you feel torn. On one hand, you want to fit in and avoid their judgment. On the other hand, you know that spending money impulsively won't bring you closer to your long-term goal. Here's where Stoic philosophy can guide you. Instead of letting the fear of disapproval dictate your actions, you can remind yourself of what truly matters, your own values and priorities. As Marcus Aurelius put it, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." By practicing self-control and staying true to your priorities, you anchor your happiness in something solid, your ability to act with integrity. And while it might feel uncomfortable to push back against external pressure, each time you choose your own values over someone else's expectations, you strengthen your sense of self and build a kind of inner resilience. What your friends think about your choice may come and go, but the satisfaction of knowing you stayed true to yourself will endure. The same principle applies to handling criticism. Let's say you've started a new project, maybe launching a business, sharing your art, or even pursuing a healthier lifestyle. But instead of support, you're met with doubts or negativity. A family member questions if you're being realistic. An online comment mocks your work. It's easy to internalize those words, to feel hurt, or even to second-guess yourself. But the Stoics teach us that other people's opinions are not a reflection of our worth. They're simply out of our control. Instead, they urge us to focus on what is within our control, our effort, our intentions, and our commitment to our values. As Epictetus said, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When faced with criticism, a Stoic would pause and ask, "Is this feedback meaningful or aligned with my values? Or is it simply noise? If it's valid, use it to improve. If it's not, let it pass like a gust of wind that doesn't alter the course of a sturdy ship." This practice not only builds self-control, but also reinforces the idea that your happiness is rooted in your own integrity, not in the fleeting approval or disapproval of others. Ultimately, the Stoics remind us that external influences, whether from societal pressures, peer expectations, or unsolicited criticism, only have as much power over us as we allow them to. By training yourself to value your own reasoned judgment above all, You reclaim your autonomy and protect your peace of mind. The path to true happiness isn't by living to meet other people's expectations, but by aligning your actions with your values and staying anchored in what you can control. As the Stoics knew so well, this is where real strength and freedom reside. Picture this: you're at a dinner party, surrounded by a table overflowing with delicious food. There's creamy pasta, endless appetizers, rich desserts, and all your favorite drinks. You've already had a satisfying meal, but you feel the pull to go back for seconds, or maybe even thirds. After all, the food is right there, and everyone else seems to be indulging. In moments like this, it's easy to give in, telling yourself, "Why not? I deserve it." But later, as the heaviness sets in, you might ask yourself, was it worth it? This seemingly simple scenario highlights a profound Stoic virtue: temperance. Temperance in Stoic philosophy is the practice of moderation and self-restraint. It's about finding balance not just in eating or drinking, but in every aspect of life. The Stoics believed that excess, whether in material possessions, entertainment, or even emotions, often leads to dissatisfaction and unhappiness. By contrast, temperance allows us to enjoy life's pleasures without becoming controlled by them. It creates a sense of harmony within us, where we're no longer at the mercy of our impulses or external distractions. But why is temperance so important for happiness? Let's take a closer look. When we overindulge, whether it's binge watching an entire season of a show, overspending on things we don't need, or eating far beyond our appetite, it might feel good in the moment. Instant gratification is appealing, and it gives us a temporary sense of satisfaction. However, that feeling often doesn't last. Instead, it can lead to regret, discomfort, or even a sense of emptiness. Why? Because excess tends to pull us away from what truly nourishes our well-being, our values, our goals, and our sense of control over our own lives. The Stoics understood this dynamic well, which is why they emphasized temperance as a key virtue. To them, temperance isn't about deprivation or denying yourself pleasure. It's about enjoying life in a way that aligns with reason, moderation, and self-mastery. It's the wisdom to know when enough is enough, and the discipline to act on that knowledge. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, frequently reminded himself in his meditations to avoid being enslaved by pleasure and to keep his desires in check. He knew that true happiness comes not from indulging every whim, but from living a life guided by self-control and purpose. Let's consider another example: entertainment. Imagine you've just started a new TV series, and the first episode is so good that you're tempted to stay up all night binge watching it. While a single episode might bring you enjoyment, watching one more, then another, and another might come at a cost to your sleep, your productivity the next day, or even your energy to pursue things that matter to you. Temperance, in this case, is what helps you pause and decide when to stop. It's not about never watching TV. It's about being mindful of your limits and choosing discipline over impulse. That discipline leads to a deeper sense of satisfaction because you've acted in a way that's aligned with your long-term well-being, rather than being swept up in the moment. Practicing temperance can feel difficult at first, especially in a world that constantly pushes us toward more consumption, more distractions, more instant gratification. But over time, temperance becomes liberating. When you exercise moderation, you free yourself from the endless cycle of wanting and chasing. You gain control over your desires instead of letting them control you. And in that control, you find a kind of peace, a happiness that's steady, not fleeting. So how can you start cultivating temperance in your own life? Begin with small, intentional acts of restraint. The next time you're faced with the urge to overindulge, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, will this bring me lasting happiness, or is it just a momentary craving? Am I in control of this choice, or is this choice controlling me? By practicing this awareness, you'll strengthen your ability to choose moderation over excess, aligning your actions with your values. Temperance isn't about saying no to pleasure. It's about saying yes to balance. It's about knowing when to stop, not out of fear or restriction, but out of wisdom and self-respect. And as the Stoics teach us, this balance is where true happiness resides. Imagine you're in the middle of a heated argument with a close friend. They've misunderstood something you said and accused you of being inconsiderate. Instinctively, you feel your chest tighten and your mind races to defend yourself. The words are right there on the tip of your tongue, ready to fire back with something sharp and cutting, something that might prove your point but escalate the conflict. In moments like these, it's so easy to react impulsively, driven by hurt or frustration. But how often does reacting in the heat of the moment make things better? More often than not, it leads to regret, words you wish you hadn't said, damage to a relationship, or even a deeper sense of disconnection. This is why the Stoics placed so much emphasis on rational reflection, on pausing before reacting. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations reminds us to take a moment to pause and steady your mind. He understood that our initial reactions are often guided by raw emotion, not reason, and that a pause allows us to regain clarity, composure, and control. For the Stoics, self-mastery comes not from suppressing emotions, but from creating the space to respond with intention rather than reacting instinctively. So how does this work in practice? Let's revisit that argument with your friend. When the accusation is made, instead of jumping into a defensive response, try to pause. Take a deep breath. That single act of breathing does more than calm your body. It also interrupts the chain reaction of emotions spilling into action. In the space of that pause, you give yourself the opportunity to reflect. Why is this accusation triggering you? Is there some truth to what your friend is saying, or is this simply a misunderstanding? What outcome do you actually want from this conversation? By delaying your response, you shift from reacting emotionally to choosing your next action thoughtfully and deliberately. This practice of pausing before reacting is central to Stoic self-control, and it begins with mastering your perceptions. Marcus Aurelius advised, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. In other words, the situation itself isn't what causes you to suffer, it's your judgment of it. When your friend accuses you of being inconsiderate, it's easy to immediately perceive their words as an attack, triggering anger or defensiveness. But what if instead you paused and questioned that perception? What if you considered the possibility that your friend isn't attacking you but expressing their own hurt? This shift in perspective can completely change the tone of the interaction, allowing for empathy and understanding rather than escalation. Think about how often reactivity complicates our lives. Maybe it's a frustrating email from a coworker, a rude comment from a stranger, or an unexpected inconvenience like traffic on the way to an important meeting. These moments have a way of triggering immediate emotional responses: anger, annoyance, even a sense of powerlessness. But the Stoics teach us that we always have a choice. We may not control the event itself, but we control how we interpret and respond to it. And through rational reflection, we give ourselves the power to choose a response that aligns with our values, rather than being carried away by fleeting emotions. For a practical example, consider the rule of 5 breaths. The next time you feel a surge of frustration or anger, commit to taking 5 slow breaths before responding. Use this time to ask yourself a few key questions. What exactly triggered this reaction? Is this worth the energy I'm about to give it? How do I want to handle this in a way that reflects my character? This simple pause can make all the difference, turning a reactive moment into a deliberate one. By integrating rational reflection into your daily life, you begin to rewrite the script of how you interact with the world. Arguments become opportunities to strengthen relationships through understanding. Frustrations transform into lessons in patience, and challenges reveal themselves as moments to practice self-control. As you build this habit, you'll notice a profound shift, not only in how you handle external events, but in the peace and clarity you carry within yourself. For the Stoics, this is what self-control is all about: reclaiming the space between stimulus and response and choosing to act in a way that serves your higher self. Gratitude often seems like a simple, even obvious concept, being thankful for what you have. But have you ever noticed how easy it is to lose sight of gratitude when we're caught up in wanting what we don't have? That urgent pull of desire, whether it's for material things, recognition, or even a perfectly imagined future, shifts our focus away from the present moment and all the blessings that already surround us. This is where self-control becomes essential. By learning to master our impulses and quiet the voice of "I need more," we create space for gratitude to take root and flourish. The Stoic philosopher Seneca captured this beautifully when he wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Think about that for a moment. True poverty isn't about lacking material wealth, it's about being consumed by an insatiable need for more. When desires rule our thoughts, we become blind to what we already possess, constantly chasing the next thing in the hope that it will bring us happiness. Yet, as the Stoics remind us, happiness isn't found in acquiring more. It's found in appreciating enough. Practicing self-control helps us break free from this cycle of endless craving. By resisting the temptation to chase every fleeting desire, we can turn our attention to the abundance already present in our lives. And what's remarkable is that this shift doesn't just bring contentment, it also deepens our sense of gratitude. When you stop constantly yearning for what's out of reach, you begin to notice the richness of what's already in front of you. Imagine, for example, that you've been eyeing the latest smartphone or the trendiest new gadget. You tell yourself, "If I get this, I'll feel happier, more productive, more fulfilled." But after the initial excitement of owning it wears off, the craving returns, this time for the next big thing. Now contrast that with practicing self-control. Instead of giving in to the urge to upgrade, you take a moment to reflect on the phone you already have. Maybe it's not the newest model, but it serves you well. It keeps you connected to loved ones, holds your favorite photos, allows you to access endless resources. By pausing to appreciate what's already yours, you feel a sense of satisfaction that doesn't depend on anything new or external. This practice of gratitude through self-control extends beyond material possessions. It applies to your relationships, your health, and even your daily experiences. How often do we overlook the presence of the people we care about, taking their love and support for granted? Or how often do we focus on what our bodies can't do, instead of being grateful for the incredible things they enable us to do each day? By exercising self-control, choosing to quiet the critical or dissatisfied voice in our minds, we make room to recognize the extraordinary within the ordinary. To put this into practice, start by taking a few moments each day to reflect on what you're grateful for. This could be as simple as a warm bed, a meaningful conversation, or even the chance to enjoy a quiet moment with a cup of tea. The key is to shift your attention away from what you think is missing and onto what is abundantly present. And when you feel the tug of a new desire or a sense of discontent, pause and take a deep breath. Remind yourself of Seneca's wisdom that craving more doesn't lead to happiness, but appreciating enough does. Gratitude and self-control are deeply intertwined. Self-control helps you resist the distractions of desire, and in that stillness, gratitude emerges naturally. It's a practice that doesn't just bring peace of mind, but also transforms how you view your life. So take a moment now and reflect. What are you grateful for today? How can self-control help you see the blessings that are already yours? As the Stoics teach us, the path to contentment isn't found in seeking more. It's found in seeing more clearly what we already have. Self-control may often feel like a deeply personal journey, something you must tackle alone. After all, it's your own impulses you're trying to manage, your own reactions you're working to master. But if we turn to Stoic wisdom, we find a surprising truth. Self-control doesn't have to, and perhaps shouldn't, be a solitary endeavor. The Stoics understood the power of community in fostering growth, accountability, and discipline. They believed that surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, those committed to the pursuit of virtue and reason, can strengthen your ability to practice self-control and live in alignment with your values. One of the core ideas in Stoicism is the concept of shared humanity. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that humans are inherently social beings, designed to live and learn together. He wrote, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids." This principle extends to the practice of self-control. When you're part of a community, whether it's close friends, family, or even a group with shared goals, it becomes easier to remain accountable to your aspirations. Knowing that others are walking a similar path can provide both encouragement and perspective, especially when the journey feels difficult. Consider the simple act of sharing your goals with others. Let's say you're trying to build the discipline to exercise regularly or eliminate a habit like procrastinating on important tasks. By telling a trusted friend or mentor about your intentions, you're not only making a commitment to yourself but also to them. This sense of accountability can be a powerful motivator. When temptation strikes or when your resolve weakens, the thought of letting someone else down, or even just the knowledge that they're rooting for you, can give you the extra push to stay on track. Beyond accountability, being part of a community allows for valuable learning opportunities. The Stoics believed in the importance of mentoring and being mentored. Seneca, for example, wrote letters to his friend Lucilius, offering guidance, advice, and reflections on how to live a virtuous and disciplined life. These letters weren't just about dispensing wisdom, they were also a form of self-reflection for Seneca, a reminder of the principles he was striving to live by. This mutual exchange of knowledge and support is one of the great benefits of a Stoic-inspired community. Whether you're seeking advice from a more experienced mentor or sharing insights with someone who's just beginning their journey, these interactions reinforce your own understanding and commitment to self-control. Let's take a modern example. Imagine you're part of a book club or discussion group centered on personal growth or philosophy. The group meets weekly to reflect on ideas, share experiences, and set goals for the week ahead. You might learn from someone else's struggles with distraction or draw inspiration from how another member overcame a particular challenge. You might also find yourself offering advice or encouragement, which in turn reinforces your own resolve. This exchange creates a cycle of growth that benefits everyone involved. Membership in a community also provides a safe space to admit when you faltered. One of the biggest barriers to self-control is the fear of failure, or rather, the fear of admitting failure. But within a supportive community, you can share setbacks without judgment, learn from them, and refocus your efforts. The Stoics understood that imperfection is part of the human condition, and that we grow stronger through honest reflection and the guidance of others. Finally, a community helps you see the bigger picture. It's easy, when practicing self-control, to become overly focused on personal challenges and lose sight of why you're pursuing discipline in the first place. A supportive group reminds you of your shared values and the greater purpose behind your efforts. It grounds your practice of self-control in something larger than yourself, giving it more meaning and depth. So if you're striving to cultivate self-control, consider the role of community in your journey. Share your goals with a trusted friend, seek out a mentor, or join a group of like-minded individuals. By fostering connections with others who are also working toward greater discipline and integrity, you not only strengthen your own practice but also contribute to the growth of those around you. As the Stoics knew, self-control may start within, but it flourishes best when nurtured through the bonds we share with others. It's easy to hear the word self-control and immediately think of strict rules, rigid routines, and unwavering discipline. And while self-control is undeniably a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, it's essential to understand that the Stoics never advocated for a life of extreme restriction or joyless rigidity. In fact, they warned that over-controlling yourself, whether through endless self-denial or unrealistic expectations, can be just as harmful as having no discipline at all. The Stoics believed in a balanced approach to self-control, one guided by reason and flexibility, rather than perfectionism or harsh self-imposed rules. Let's take a practical example. Imagine someone who has decided to live a healthier lifestyle. Motivated to make a change, they commit to an incredibly strict diet and exercise routine. They completely cut out their favorite foods, refuse to take rest days, and spend hours at the gym, no matter how tired or stressed they feel. At first, their rigid self-discipline seems admirable, even inspiring. But over time, cracks begin to show. They start to feel burnt out, frustrated, and even resentful toward the routine they once embraced. Eventually, they give up altogether, overwhelmed by the unsustainable demands they've placed on themselves. This is a classic case of over-control backfiring. From a Stoic perspective, this kind of rigid self-control is not true discipline. It's a misunderstanding of what discipline is meant to achieve. The Stoics taught that self-control should serve our well-being, not become a source of suffering. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, encouraged moderation and reason in all things. He wrote, "Be neither extravagant in your actions nor overly constrained. Ensure your actions follow reason." In other words, self-discipline is most effective and sustainable when it's grounded in balance and guided by rationality. Seneca also warned against the dangers of taking discipline to extremes. He believed that while it's noble to strive for self-improvement, it's equally important to allow room for enjoyment and flexibility. True happiness, he said, comes from a life aligned with nature. And nature, as the Stoics often pointed out, isn't rigid. It's adaptable, flowing, and ever-changing. Just as a river bends around obstacles rather than fighting against them, our practice of self-control should be flexible enough to adjust to life's shifting circumstances. So, how can we apply this balance in our own lives? Returning to the example of the overly restrictive approach to health, a Stoic-inspired mindset would encourage moderation. Instead of cutting out every indulgence, why not allow occasional treats as part of an overall healthy lifestyle? Instead of forcing yourself to stick to a routine that exhausts you, why not listen to your body and rest when it's needed? True self-control isn't about punishing yourself or striving for impossible standards. It's about making choices that align with your values while also honoring your humanity. The same principle applies to other areas of life, whether it's work, relationships, or personal growth. Take someone driven to succeed at their job. They work tirelessly, sacrificing sleep, personal time, and relaxation in pursuit of their goals. At first, their efforts might yield results, but eventually the constant overwork takes a toll. Burnout sets in and their performance, along with their happiness, begins to decline. A Stoic would remind them that discipline isn't about running themselves into the ground. It's about maintaining a steady, sustainable effort that respects the limits of the mind and body. The Stoics teach us that self-control should always be guided by reason, and reason tells us that life is not about extremes. It's not about endless self-indulgence, but it's also not about relentless deprivation. The path of the Stoic is one of balance, where self-control serves as a tool to help us live wisely, virtuously, and joyfully. By avoiding the trap of over-control and embracing a more flexible, reasoned approach, we create space for a life that is disciplined yet fulfilling. A life where self-control is not a burden but a way to thrive. There's a well-known line often recited during times of uncertainty and struggle. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. This is the Serenity Prayer, a simple yet profound expression of wisdom that has guided millions, especially in moments of challenge or self-doubt. What's fascinating is how deeply this message aligns with Stoic philosophy. Though the Serenity Prayer has its roots in modern spirituality, its essence mirrors the teachings of the ancient Stoics almost perfectly, particularly when it comes to the practice of self-control. At the heart of the Serenity Prayer is the idea of discernment, recognizing what is within your control and what is not. If this sounds familiar, it's because it directly parallels the Stoic concept of the dichotomy of control. Epictetus, one of the most influential Stoic philosophers, famously taught that there are two categories in life: things we can control and things we cannot. Our thoughts, choices, and actions fall squarely within our control, while external events, outcomes, and the actions of others are completely outside of it. The Stoics believed that understanding this distinction is essential for cultivating self-control and achieving peace of mind. Let's take a moment to connect this to everyday life. Imagine you're facing a difficult situation at work. Perhaps a project you've poured your heart into is falling apart due to factors beyond your control. A client changes their mind, a deadline shifts, or resources suddenly become unavailable. Naturally, this stirs feelings of frustration, even anger. You might feel tempted to obsess over what went wrong, blaming yourself or others, or trying to force the situation back into your control. But here's where both the Serenity Prayer and Stoic philosophy remind us of a crucial truth. You cannot change the past or control every external factor. What you can control is your response, your effort moving forward, your mindset, and your ability to adapt. The wisdom to discern this difference is what allows you to channel your energy where it truly matters. The Serenity Prayer emphasizes serenity, courage, and wisdom, the same qualities the Stoics held in high regard. Serenity comes from accepting what is beyond your influence. Courage fuels the effort to act where you have power, and wisdom helps you navigate the line between the two. For example, when you find yourself caught in an argument with someone who refuses to listen, the initial reaction might be to try harder to convince them, growing increasingly agitated as the conversation spirals. A Stoic approach, guided by the wisdom of both the Dichotomy of Control and the Serenity Prayer, would remind you to pause and reflect. Can you control how this person feels or reacts? Likely not. What you can control is choosing to disengage from the argument, protect your peace, and perhaps respond with patience or understanding instead of frustration. This shift in focus is the very essence of self-control. It's not about controlling every outcome but mastering your own reactions. The beauty of this parallel is how accessible it makes Stoic philosophy. While ancient Stoic teachings may feel abstract or distant at first glance, the values embedded in the Serenity Prayer bridge that gap, offering a simple framework that anyone can apply in daily life. Whether you're dealing with a personal setback, managing difficult relationships, or grappling with uncertainty, this approach gives you clarity. It reminds you that peace doesn't come from trying to control everything. It comes from focusing on what's truly in your hands and letting go of the rest. So, the next time you're facing a challenge, consider these questions. What part of this situation is within my control? What is genuinely outside of it? And how can I act with wisdom, courage, and serenity in this moment? By practicing this mindset, we not only align ourselves with the teachings of the Stoics, but also with a timeless principle of inner peace and self-mastery. And in doing so, we take one more step toward living a life guided by clarity, resilience, and true self-control. Patience is a virtue, one of those phrases we've all heard countless times. But have you ever stopped to really think about what patience means? For the Stoics, patience wasn't just about waiting for something to happen. It was an active practice, a tangible expression of self-control in the face of life's challenges. Seneca, one of Stoicism's great thinkers, wrote, "What then is time? It is something of which we ought to be especially thrifty." This simple yet profound idea highlights the link between time and patience. In moments of impatience, we aren't just frustrated by waiting, we're frustrated because we see our time as being wasted. But the Stoics teach us that waiting doesn't have to feel like lost time. If we approach it with intention, patience can become a powerful tool for cultivating inner peace. Think about a moment when impatience got the better of you. Maybe it was being stuck in traffic, waiting in a long line, or dealing with a delayed project at work. In those moments, you probably felt the anxiety creeping in. Your mind raced, perhaps with thoughts of blame or annoyance. You wanted to move, to get to the next thing, to avoid the discomfort of having to wait. But what did that impatience achieve? Did it make the cars move faster? Did it shorten the line? Likely not. Impatience doesn't change the situation itself. It only amplifies your frustration and robs you of peace in the moment. Now imagine approaching that same situation the Stoic way. Instead of fighting against the reality of waiting, you use it as an exercise in patience and self-control. Instead of seeing the time as wasted, you decide to make something meaningful of it. Perhaps you reflect on your day, plan your next steps, or simply focus on your breath to calm your mind. By doing this, you transform a moment of frustration into one of intention and clarity. This is what the Stoics meant by practicing patience, not resigning yourself to a situation, but actively choosing to use it in a way that aligns with your well-being. Patience in this way is a direct practice of self-control. It's the ability to pause, to accept what you cannot rush or force, and to respond calmly rather than reacting impulsively. When you master patience, you master the art of waiting not passively but purposefully. And this practice builds a sense of resilience. Over time, you realize that you don't need to be ruled by your emotions or your desire for instant results. You learn to respect the natural rhythm of events, trusting that things will unfold as they need to. Seneca's wisdom about time reminds us that impatience often comes from a misunderstanding of its value. When we feel impatient, what we're really saying is, "This moment isn't enough, I want the next one." But the Stoics remind us that every moment, even the one spent waiting, holds potential. If you're stuck in traffic, that can be an opportunity to listen to a podcast that inspires you or to sit quietly and reflect. If you're waiting for progress on a project, perhaps patience can give you a chance to refine your thinking or approach. When you wait with intention, you transform time from an enemy into an ally, one that works in your favor rather than against it. Let's consider a relatable example: waiting for a promotion at work. It's easy to grow impatient when you believe you deserve recognition but feel it's taking too long to arrive. You might obsess about when it will happen, constantly compare yourself to others, or let frustration seep into your daily tasks. But a Stoic approach would ask you to pause and reflect. While you can't control the exact timing of the promotion, you can control how you use the waiting period. Perhaps this is the time to sharpen your skills, build stronger relationships with colleagues, or simply appreciate the progress you've already made in your role. By practicing patience, you don't just endure the wait, you grow through it. And when the promotion finally arrives, it will feel that much more rewarding because you've used the time to prepare yourself fully. Ultimately, patience is more than just a virtue. It's a manifestation of self-control, a decision to act with intention rather than react out of frustration. It's about embracing the flow of time rather than resisting it and finding peace even in life's delays. So the next time you feel impatience bubbling up, remember Seneca's wisdom about time and ask yourself, how can I use this waiting period to grow? How can I turn this moment into an opportunity for clarity and calm? By practicing patience in this way, you strengthen not only your self-control, but also your ability to find peace in every situation. Self-control isn't something you achieve once and then never think about again. It's not like crossing a finish line where you're suddenly done. The Stoics understood this deeply. To them, self-control was a way of life, a daily commitment, a skill that requires constant practice and refinement. It's an ongoing journey, not a final destination, and that might sound overwhelming at first, but here's the good news. This isn't about making grand, sweeping changes overnight. It's about the small, intentional actions you take every single day. Those little moments of effort build over time, strengthening your willpower bit by bit, in the same way that lifting a single weight every day eventually makes you stronger. Let's break this down. Each day is full of small opportunities to practice self-control. For example, when your alarm goes off in the morning, there's a moment of choice. Do you hit snooze and stay in bed, or do you get up and start your day as planned? That decision might seem trivial, but it's exactly these small moments that shape your self-discipline in the long run. By choosing self-control in the little things, whether it's avoiding that extra scroll on your phone, sticking to your budget at the store, or pausing before reacting in frustration, you're training your mind to respond with intention rather than impulse. Over time, these small wins add up, creating the foundation for greater self-control when bigger challenges arise. The Stoics often spoke of practicing philosophy not as a theoretical exercise, but as a daily, applied discipline. Epictetus encouraged his students to see each day as a training ground for developing their character. He said, "No great thing is created suddenly, there must be time. Give yourself to it." In other words, self-control isn't about instant mastery, it's about showing up day after day, even when progress feels slow. And as with any skill, the more consistently you practice, the stronger it becomes. You wouldn't expect to run a marathon without training for it in small, manageable steps, right? The same principle applies to self-control. What's helpful is to approach this daily practice with a sense of curiosity and purpose, rather than pressure or perfectionism. Start by identifying one small area of your life where you'd like to exercise more control. Maybe it's eating more mindfully, resisting distractions at work, or being more patient in your interactions with others. The key is to focus on something manageable and actionable. For example, if distraction is your challenge, you might set a timer for 20 minutes and commit to focusing fully on a single task. That's it, just 20 minutes of dedicated effort. It's a small step, but it creates momentum. And the beauty of this process is that each small step builds confidence. Each time you follow through on your intention, you're proving to yourself that you can act with discipline and control. Let's also talk about setbacks because they're inevitable. The Stoics didn't expect perfection, and neither should you. The path to self-control is filled with moments where you'll stumble or give in to temptation. Maybe you eat the cookie you said you wouldn't, skip the workout you promised yourself, or lose your temper in a difficult conversation. When this happens, the most important thing is how you respond. Instead of falling into guilt or self-criticism, take a step back and reflect. Ask yourself, what triggered this? What did I learn? And how can I approach the situation differently next time? The Stoics emphasized learning from mistakes as a crucial part of growth. Seneca even wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." The point isn't to be flawless, it's to keep moving forward, no matter how many times you have to start again. Over time, treating self-control as a daily practice does something remarkable. It changes how you see yourself. You start to identify as someone who has the ability to pause, choose, and act with intention. You begin to trust yourself more, knowing that you're capable of sticking to your values and making decisions that align with the person you aspire to be. And while the journey of self-control never truly ends, the satisfaction of growing stronger each day is a reward in itself. So today, ask yourself, what's one small way I can practice self-control right now? It doesn't have to be grand or life-changing, just something simple that you can commit to. Maybe it's taking 3 deep breaths before answering an email, or choosing water instead of soda, or going for a 10-minute walk to clear your mind. Whatever it is, start small, start today, and let the daily practice of self-control guide you toward the life you want to lead. Remember, the Stoics didn't aim for perfection, they aimed for progress. And every small step you take is a step forward on that journey. Relationships are one of the most significant parts of our lives, yet they're also one of the most challenging. Whether it's with a partner, family member, friend, or colleague, the dynamics of relationships often test our patience and emotional control. This is where Stoic self-control becomes a game changer. By learning to manage emotions like anger, jealousy, and impatience, we can foster healthier, more harmonious connections with the people around us. Let's consider anger, for example. It's one of the most common emotions that disrupts relationships. Imagine you're navigating a disagreement with your partner. Maybe they forgot something important, an anniversary, a promise, or a task they said they'd handle. Immediately, you feel that familiar surge of frustration, and your impulse might be to lash out with criticism or blame. But how often does reacting in anger actually resolve the situation? More often than not, it escalates the conflict, leading to hurt feelings and deeper misunderstandings. The Stoics teach us to pause in these moments. Marcus Aurelius famously wrote, "You always have the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to be upset or to trouble your soul about things you cannot control." What does this mean for a disagreement? It reminds us that we can choose how we respond. Instead of reacting emotionally, we can pause, reflect, and approach the situation with calm and reason. Let's go back to the example of your partner forgetting something important. After the initial surge of frustration, imagine practicing self-control. You pause, take a breath, and remind yourself that while you can't control your partner's actions, you can control your response. Instead of jumping into criticism, you calmly express how you feel. "I was really looking forward to celebrating this, and I feel disappointed that it slipped your mind." By controlling your emotions, you create the space for a constructive conversation rather than a heated argument. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't just prevent conflict, it deepens your connection. When you respond with patience and understanding, you signal to the other person that you value the relationship more than the momentary frustration. This builds trust, fosters empathy, and encourages open communication. And the same principle applies to other emotions like jealousy or impatience, which can also strain relationships when left unchecked. Take jealousy, for instance. Maybe you feel envious of a friend's accomplishments or attention, and that feeling starts to cloud your interactions. Stoic self-control helps here by encouraging you to examine the root of your jealousy. Is it truly about the other person, or is it a reflection of your own insecurities or unmet goals? Instead of letting jealousy fester, you can use it as an opportunity for growth, focusing on your own path and celebrating your friend's successes without resentment. This shift not only strengthens the friendship but also frees you from the negativity that jealousy brings. impatience is another relationship hurdle. Whether it's waiting for a loved one to make a decision, grow, or simply show up on time, impatience can create unnecessary tension. The Stoics remind us to practice patience by focusing on what's within our control. Instead of fixating on someone else's behavior, we can redirect our energy toward acceptance and understanding. By doing so, we avoid frustration and bring a sense of calm to the relationship. Ultimately, relationships thrive when we bring self-awareness and emotional control to the table. The Stoics believed that our emotions should serve us, not the other way around. By practicing self-control, we're not suppressing our emotions but mastering them, allowing us to respond in ways that align with our values and strengthen our connections with others. So, the next time you're faced with a conflict or emotional tension in a relationship, take a page from the Stoics. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what's within my control? How can I respond in a way that reflects patience, kindness, and reason? By choosing self-control, you'll not only handle the situation more effectively, but also nurture relationships that are built on respect, understanding, and harmony. As we bring everything together, let's reflect on the wisdom the Stoics have shared with us. Self-control is so much more than just suppressing impulses or resisting temptation. It's about aligning our actions with our reason, our values, and our true purpose. Through mastering self-control, we gain the ability to act intentionally rather than reacting to life's challenges on autopilot. And in doing so, we not only find greater control over our circumstances, but also unlock the path to lasting happiness. The Stoics taught us that there are certain things within our control, our thoughts, choices, and actions, and things beyond our control, like other people's opinions or the outcomes of events. By focusing on what we can control and releasing our attachment to what we cannot, we reclaim our power and free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. This is the core of the Stoic dichotomy of control, a principle that helps us navigate life with clarity and peace, no matter what comes our way. We also explored how self-control helps us strike a balance between desire and reason. Instead of being led astray by fleeting pleasures or impulsive decisions, temperance allows us to live a life of moderation and purpose. It's not about depriving ourselves of joy, but about focusing on what truly matters, creating a life aligned with our deeper values rather than chasing what is shallow or temporary. And let's not forget the power of patience. The Stoics showed us that with self-control, even life's delays and frustrations can become opportunities to grow. When we learn to wait with intention and maintain composure in the face of obstacles, we bring a sense of calm to our lives and relationships. Patience isn't just about enduring the wait, it's about choosing how we wait, turning moments of difficulty into moments of strength. Most importantly, self-control is a practice. It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. As the Stoics reminded us time and again, progress is what matters. Each moment, each choice is a chance to grow stronger and more aligned with the person we wish to become. By committing to the daily practice of self-control, whether that means pausing for reflection, setting boundaries, or acting with purpose, we create a foundation for lasting inner peace and happiness. So now, let me ask you this: what small step can you take today to strengthen your self-control? Maybe it's taking a breath before responding to a stressful situation. Or perhaps it's setting a clear intention for how you want to approach the day. Remember, self-control starts with the little things, and over time, those small actions add up to big changes. As we close, keep in mind the words of Epictetus: "No man is free who is not master of himself." This journey toward self-control is ultimately a journey toward freedom, a freedom not defined by external circumstances, but by your ability to govern your own thoughts, emotions, and actions. Strive for progress, not perfection, and embrace each day as an opportunity to grow a little stronger and live a little closer to your highest self. The power is within you, and the journey begins with a single